Everyone has a story. Stories have power. Curtis, great to see you.
Good to see you too. Well, wait a minute. We got a fist bumping.
Okay. They help us understand each other. This is Jessop's Journal. Time to sign in, please.
Let's do it.
Today on Jessop's Journal, I've got Booker. You know, I attempted to call you Booker T, but you know, not quite. You know, or
no
Curtis.
relation.
No relation.
No relation.
Okay. So tell me how you and I know each other.
So I believe we met. I want to say this was 17 years ago, 2003.
Yeah.
I was at U92 at the time, and we came by to shoot a commercial for a TV show that was running on, was it Z24?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, KPNZ.
Oh, man.
My general manager at the time brought me over there, and we shot a commercial. I don't remember what the show was called, though.
Yeah, I probably don't either.
I have a good memory, but it's not that good.
Well, that's pretty good. I'm thinking that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So U92, so that was 17 years ago.
That was
so
17 years ago,
What are you doing now?
I've had several stints at U92. That was during my first stint. I left for a couple years shortly after that. Took a job in Florida as a program director. Was there for 2 years. Came back in 2005. Was there till 2013. I got laid off. I did some moving around, and I've been recently back at U92 in the morning, about a year now. It was last January I came back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's your on-air name?
It's Booker.
Booker. Okay.
Yeah. Funny story about that, I was doing an internship in my hometown of Detroit, and the guy who I was interning with said, "Hey, you should go by Curtis the Amateur DJ." So
Really?
when I sent my what's called air check, my demo tape out, I was going by Curtis the Amateur DJ.
Okay.
I got my first full-time job in Idaho Falls, Idaho, and the program director said, "Why don't you just go by your last name, Booker?" And there you go.
There you go. Well, it fits. It works. It's you.
Yeah.
Tell me what it was like to grow up in Detroit.
Growing up in Detroit was fun, late 80s, 90s. I just remember being able to hang out with my friends, riding bikes throughout the neighborhood, going to school. I mean, everything from what I remember growing up in Detroit was just always fun.
Yeah. It's not quite the same anymore?
You know, it's a little different now. The city is going through a resurgence. Downtown Detroit is definitely going through a resurgence. A lot of tech companies are coming.
Oh, okay.
All the sports teams are downtown. So downtown Detroit has definitely made a resurgence. As far as the city, still got some work to do. But
So-
I love my hometown. I will never, disown it.
There you go. So what did your dad do?
So my dad worked for the Big Three. He worked for Ford Motor Company.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, surprise, Detroit, working for an automaker, right?
Yeah.
So what did your parents think when you're saying, hey, I want to be a disc jockey?
Originally, I wanted to be a lawyer.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't decide I wanted to be in radio until I was almost through high school.
Okay.
I always had a love for music.
So what kind of music did your parents listen to when you were growing up?
It varied for the most part. When I remember being in the car, it was like, and so take into account, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, so I would always hear like 70s music, like Marvin Gaye, Aretha Franklin, Four Tops, Temptations, that type of stuff is what I remember playing in the car. But as time progressed, they kind of got into more of like the current music that I was listening to and my sister was listening to. So it varied, but for the most part, obviously being from Detroit, a lot of Motown.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, it's the motherland, right?
Yep, exactly.
So who believed in you before you believed in you?
I would say my parents did. I know that's probably, the more basic answer that you get, but in times where I would doubt myself and early on in my career where I'd say, you know what, I want to come home, my dad and my mom would always talk me out of it. Like, no, you're doing this for a reason. You're out there. You come too far to quit. So just in times of doubt, I always remember them kind of pushing me to go forward and believing in me.
Yeah. You have kids?
I have two of them.
Okay. Names?
My oldest name is Keaton, and my youngest name is Calvin. They're 14 and 13.
So what are they doing that you're helping them to kind of believe in?
So my youngest son is really into sports. He's into like basketball and football. So when I go to his practices, sometimes he gets a little hard on himself and beats himself up. I just try to, encourage him to keep going. And, if you're feeling frustrated, just take a moment, but to keep going. My oldest he's kind of into a lot of different things, but he's really into computers and video games. So I just try to encourage him that do something you're passionate about. Don't do what I want you to do or your grandparents want you to do. Do something that you're passionate about. That's what I did.
So as a dad, did you ever catch yourself doing one of those things? Oh my gosh, I've turned into my dad.
Not yet. I haven't done it yet, but I'm pretty sure it'll get to a point real soon, but I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, okay. You know it's going to come.
Oh yeah, I'll be 41 in March, so yeah, it'll come.
So how old were you when you started your first radio gig?
20 years old. This was back home in Detroit. I was doing an internship, and technically I got hired as a board operator.
Okay.
And I would run like the weekend programming. I would come in at like 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, run weekend programming, come back on a Sunday morning at 6, be there to run the Casey Kasem Top 40. So I did that when I was 20. My first full-time gig away from home, I was 21. That was in the fall of 2000, and that's when I made the move to Idaho Falls, Idaho.
Okay, now I got to ask. A kid from Detroit, okay,
I always get this.
Going all the way to Idaho Falls.
Yeah.
What kind of culture shock did you have?
It wasn't, there was definitely a culture shock because I knew about the LDS culture, but I didn't know a lot about it. So getting there, I would see missionaries on their bikes, and I had friends who were LDS, and they would really explain things to me like, this is the way it is, and I respected it. Other than that, it was just getting used to a small town.
Yeah.
Because when you grow up in a major city and you're used to that, you're used to being able to go to any mall you want. You're used to different restaurants. You're used to 4-lane highways, and you get somewhere and it's only 2 lanes, or there's only one mall, or there's only one supermarket. So just the quality of life type of stuff was probably the biggest adjustment.
A lot of the time, having been in radio myself as well, there's this illusion that people have of what you look like.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever experienced that? What tell me a story.
So early on, even up until recently, I'm about 5'7", pretty short. I always would get, when I would go out to remotes and events, I thought you were a tall white guy. I would get that all the time. I would meet listeners and they go, "You're Booker? I thought you were a tall white guy." I'm like, "Nope, I'm a short black guy."
Yeah. So what's something that people might not realize about you?
I, over the last 3 years, have gone through a weight transformation. Up until about 2016, I was 300 pounds. And over the course between 2016 and 2018, I lost 120 of those pounds.
Wow.
Now, I've put a few back on, but that was probably one of my biggest victories to date. Because when I meet people now that didn't know me back then, and they say, "Well, why do you make such a big deal about going to the gym? Or why do you make such a big deal about being healthy?" And then I pull up my Facebook and I say, "Because I used to look like this." And they go, "Oh, I didn't know." But people who knew me from years past, even now they they still are in awe because it's like, "Oh, I remember when you were this," or "I remember when you would get winded going up the stairs." So,
Well, you look great.
I try.
But so what was there something that kind of precipitated that? What happened?
Honestly, I had always been trying to lose weight, but I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't know what foods to eat. I didn't know when I should exercise. So I took a job in Idaho, in Boise, and I actually got an endorsement. I was doing the morning show out there, and they got me an endorsement with this company. And I learned everything I needed to know about how to lose weight properly. And typically, you do a weight loss program, and it's like, maybe lose 10 or 15 pounds, and is going to be done. Well, I lost 30 pounds in 1 month.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I said, this is actually working. Let me keep going. And I just kept going. And probably the biggest thing for me, like years ago, I would try to play with my kids and I would get winded. Like I couldn't run around the park with them. I just would be I would have no energy. So that probably was the biggest thing, because now, you know, my youngest, when he wants to play basketball, I don't get tired and I can run around with them. I mean, they're a little bit older now, but if they ever want to run around, it's not such a big deal for me.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to somebody else that's kind of in that same situation?
I would say you just got to believe in yourself. There's going to be days where, you know, if you can't pay too much attention to the scale, because the scale is going to fluctuate.
Yep.
Pay attention to how your body feels. Pay attention to how your clothes are fitting. You know, if you got a pair of pants or a shirt that at one time was too tight and it's starting to feel looser, well, obviously you're doing something right. So just pay attention to your body and don't get too frustrated. And remember, it's not a race, it's a marathon.
Yeah.
So you got to be in it for the long haul.
One of our underwriters' monikers, hashtags, I guess it is leave your mark. So for you, for Booker, what does leave your mark mean?
If I had to leave my mark, I would say never give up. There's going to be challenges, there's going to be obstacles in life. And if you have a goal, if you have something you want to pursue, those obstacles are going to get in the way. Life's going to get in the way. But if it's something that you want really bad, don't give up. Keep going, keep fighting, keep pushing through it. And eventually you'll get to your goal. It may not happen overnight. It may take a couple years, but eventually you'll get there. And that probably would be my mark. Just never give up. Keep going.
Okay, so you were on radio for 20 years. Now you're doing a little bit of the TV side.
Yeah.
What's the biggest difference? Is there something that you have been surprised by on the TV side?
Probably the biggest thing would be just what you see in front of the camera isn't always what you really get.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. Like I never knew that news producers, you spend 8 or 9 hours putting together a half-hour show. I would have never guessed that. When I was talking to our news director, Todd, about being an associate producer and then eventually a news producer, and I always wonder, like, okay, why do I have to be here for 8 hours? And then when I started to do it, it's like, oh, wow, this really can take all day to put a half-hour newscast together. So I think the biggest thing is just seeing all the behind the scenes and with the producers, directors, floor crew. There's so many things to go into that 28-minute newscast that I never knew and viewers never know. So that, I mean, it's been different from radio, but it's been really cool to see, because I feel like I'm getting a lot of education now on the news side of media.
Well, from the radio side and the news side, you know, having been doing both, thank you very much for coming on Jessop's Journal.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Curtis, thanks again for coming on Jessop's Journal.
Thank you for having me.
We have some fun gifts from our underwriters.
Very cool.
First off, it's Jessop's Journal, so we got to give you a journal. So
wow,
here's your own
leather
personalized
book with my name on it. That's awesome. Thank you.
awesome pen.
Very cool.
Ed likes to say it writes itself. Pretty cool. Taylor Cooperative is where I get all my shirts and suits made.
Yep.
Now, what's really cool with your weight loss and everything, these guys are actually going to make you a custom shirt.
I love it.
Very cool. So
Thank
here's
you.
that. As you know, I wear a hat or two, usually one at a time.
I've seen quite a few of them.
Okay, so JW Custom Hats is my hatter. They're going to make you your own custom hat.
Amazing.
The folks at Liquid Dirt, they're my organic green thumb guys, have given you this special plant and their cool fertilizer. And then the folks at Ogden's Own Distillery are providing some spirits for you.
Oh, wow.
So the thing I want people to remember is stories have power. They help us understand each other. With another entry into Jessop's Journal and Curtis Booker, I'm Doug Jessop, ABC4 News.